Hello, mi gente, and welcome back to Nata Knows Best. So today I'm going to be making a Puerto Rican coconut pudding called Tembleque. Now, this recipe is usually popular around the holidays, but because we're in summer, I like the idea of a refreshing coconut dessert. And this recipe is exactly that. It's refreshing, it's creamy, and it's perfect for you guys to try. So let's get into it. I love making tembleque because it's such a simple dessert and it's literally made in one pot. It also only has a few ingredients. To make tembleque, you're going to need some coconut milk. This is actually a Thai brand of coconut milk, and the reason why I chose it is because it's a full-fat coconut milk and it also has a bright white color. You're also going to need some white sugar, some cornstarch, some vanilla extract, some ground cinnamon and some salt, a full stick of cinnamon, as well as a lime peel. So now that I showed you guys the ingredients, I'm gonna give you a quick little history lesson because what's Puerto Rican cooking without a small bit of history? So tembleque comes from the word temblor or temblar, which means to shake. And the reason why is tembleque is commonly referred to a coconut pudding, but in reality, it's not really a pudding consistency. It actually looks more like a jello texture. So that's the reason why you kind of get jello in the way that it jiggles and temblor the way that it jiggles as well. So there's your little bit of history on this dessert. Now let's go ahead and start cooking. Now the first step to making tembleque is to start with our dry ingredients. So here I have a large pot. Remember, this is a one-pot recipe, and I have this pot on no heat. Remember that. You don't want to start heating your ingredients just yet. So this is just on a cold surface. And I'm going to add my sugar. Next, I'm going to add my cornstarch. And lastly, my salt and my ground cinnamon. And again, on no heat whatsoever, I'm just going to whisk these ingredients together until there are no clumps. Next, to our dry ingredients, I'm going to add our wet ingredients. So here I have 1 can of our coconut milk. And I'm gonna whisk that in. Next, I'm gonna add another can of coconut milk. This recipe is actually made with 2 cans of coconut milk. And as a reminder, I actually used a Thai brand of coconut milk because it's full fat and I feel like it's gonna give a really good richness to our tembleque. Okay, and lastly, we're going to add our vanilla extract. You want to whisk this until everything is fully incorporated and there are no lumps before actually starting the cooking process. Now that we've finished our pudding base, I'm finally going to turn on the heat. I'm actually going to turn it on to medium-high heat. And then I'm going to add in some of our aromatics. So in addition to the ground cinnamon that we added, we're also going to add 1 whole stick of cinnamon, and we're going to allow that to steep inside the mixture. And then we're also going to add some lime peels. So because I had such a small little lime, I only have a few pieces of the peel, but again, we're gonna add those in there and allow it to steep so it gives our coconut base a little more of a citrus tone to it. Now the important thing to making tembleque is to constantly stir the mixture until you start seeing small bubbles form. So we just kind of want to cook it until it begins to simmer. So our mixture has been simmering for a few minutes, I would say roughly about 7 minutes. And you want to keep an eye on it from anywhere between 5 minutes to 10 minutes. So we're almost in that point. And you know your mixture is done when it starts creating thin ribbons. Now that our tembleque reached the perfect consistency, I turned off the heat and removed it so it can start cooling. And I'm gonna start fishing out our cinnamon stick and some of our lime peels. Here I have our cold tembleque, and our last step is to add our pudding into our molds. Now these are actually silicone molds that are made for donuts, but they're actually the perfect size for mini portions of tembleque. They come in these cute little shapes and sizes, so if you guys actually like these, I will link them in the description box below. So here's a little tip if you are going to be using silicone molds. I would recommend rinsing them under cold water and then quickly removing the water. So you're still going to have a little bit of droplets in your molds, but that's going to create somewhat of a moisture barrier before you add your tembleque. With our molds already rinsed, I'm going to add our tembleque. With the back of our spoon, we're just going to smooth the tops out. And now that we've covered our molds with our pudding, you can either put some plastic wrap on top to seal the tops, or you can put a top like this. So I'm just gonna do a standard Tupperware top, and I'm gonna put it in our fridge to cool for about 8 hours to overnight. All right, mi gente, and I'm back. Today is the next day, and I was able to gently remove one of the molds for our tembleque. It is looking so beautiful. I went ahead and sprinkled some cinnamon on top, and I'm gonna go ahead and give it a taste test. Very creamy. I know this is a popular dessert during the holiday months, but honestly, when it comes to summer, who wouldn't want a refreshing coconut pudding? It is so creamy and delicious, and it's exactly what I was craving. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that recipe on my Nata Knows Boricua playlist. As you guys know, I have a playlist that is curated with all of my favorite Puerto Rican recipes, so go ahead and check that one out along with all the other ones. I will also be putting this recipe on my website, which is nataknowsbest.com, so go check that out if you haven't. Support your girl, it is much, much appreciated. And stay tuned for next week for another delicious recipe. As always, mi gente, thank you so much for watching. Nata Knows Best.